Mihrimah Sultan, a woman between the sun and the moon. Mihrimah Sultan. She was born as the daughter of one of the most powerful emperors the world had ever known. Her father was Suleiman the Magnificent, ruler of a vast empire. Yet Mihrimah was never just a sultan's daughter. In her father's eyes, she was a child whose wisdom and dignity revealed themselves far too early. Her childhood passed behind the high walls of Topkapi Palace. She grew up among golden halls and silk curtains, yet her heart was never bound by luxury alone. The bond she shared with her father was rare within the palace. Suleiman did not see Mihrimah only as his daughter, but as a mind worth listening to, a voice worth considering. Her mother, Rüstem Sultan, knew her daughter well. She sensed that Mihrimah's destiny would never be ordinary. It is said that she often whispered these words to her: "I will never give you to a heart you do not choose." Those words became both a promise and a quiet waiting. Inside Mihrimah's young heart, the first test of the heart. As the time of marriage approached, Mihrimah Sultan was no longer known only for her beauty. Her intelligence, grace, and presence were spoken of throughout the palace. And it was during these years that a name, whispered softly among the people, found its way into her heart. Bali Bey, a soldier whose courage was legendary, whose name echoed across battlefields. With his noble bearing and striking presence, he drew not only Mihrimah's attention, but the admiration of many women of that era. According to legend, Mihrimah Sultan did not fall for him at first sight. Rather, her heart stirred as she listened to his stories, as she heard of his bravery and honor in war. And again, as the people tell it, Mihrimah Sultan sent letters to Bali Bey during his campaigns. They were not confessions of love. A sultan could never allow such words. Yet between the lines lived concern, curiosity, and a silent admiration. What was forbidden for any woman was forbidden twice as much for Mihrimah Sultan. She could not even love, out loud, a silent passion. This passion was never spoken aloud. It never entered palace records, nor did it find a place in history books. Yet for centuries, people whispered the same story, that Mihrimah Sultan felt her first true excitement of the heart with Bali Bey. And perhaps the most painful truth was this: Bali Bey was, at that time, an unreachable figure of admiration. Wars, duties, the weight of an empire. There was no world where love could be openly spoken. It became a burden, to be carried silently within the heart. Rüstem Sultan did not forget the promise she made to her daughter, but within the palace, words were weighed on the scale of the state, long before they reached the heart. As Mihrimah Sultan grew older, it was no longer her beauty that was spoken of, but her mind. Women around her were cautious. Pashas chose their words carefully in her presence, because Mihrimah never forgot what she heard. Ushir kept what she saw to herself, and when needed, frightened others with her silence. To Rüstem Sultan, her daughter was no longer only a child. She had become a political move, and that move would be made with one of the most powerful men of the empire. The marriage to Rüstem Pasha, not love, but power. When Mihrimah Sultan was married to Rüstem Pasha, everyone knew one thing clearly: this was not a marriage of love. Yet no one could deny this truth. Through this union, Mihrimah Sultan became the most untouchable woman in the palace. Rüstem Pasha was the Grand Vizier. Still, many whispered the same question: who truly holds the power, Rüstem Pasha or Mihrimah Sultan standing behind him? The women of the harem feared her, because Mihrimah did not weave intrigues, did not raise her voice, yet could change destinies with a single sentence. Even the Pashas could not ignore her gaze, for Mihrimah Sultan was no longer merely the daughter of her father. She was a woman who thought as her father did, from heart to power. Mihrimah's transformation. Bali Bey, that silent passion she carried within her heart. Mihrimah Sultan may have loved, for the first and last time, a man outside the palace walls. But this love was never lived, And it was at this very moment that Mihrimah changed. She did not become a woman who lost love. She became a woman who turned her emotions into weapons. She united her wealth, her intellect, and her position. She founded charitable endowments, built caravanserais, commissioned mosques. But what she truly built was this: the delicate line between fear and respect. Women approached her with distance. Pashas spoke cautiously when her name was mentioned, because Mihrimah Sultan was a woman without love, yet never a weak one. The woman who lost love and gained an empire. Mihrimah Sultan's story is not a love fairy tale. That is exactly why it is powerful. She was Dusru, the daughter of the most powerful man in the world. Yet she stood not by her heart, but by her mind. Perhaps she never had love, but she had wealth. She had authority. She carried a reputation that inspired fear. And perhaps most importantly, no one remembered her as a helpless woman. Mihrimah Sultan left behind this impression in history. If a woman cannot live love, she can learn to rule the world. A silent glance. The legend of Mimar Sinan. Years passed. Mihrimah Sultan was no longer a young girl. She had secured her power and carved her name between fear and respect. And it was during these years that another whisper rose from the margins of history. Mimar Sinan, the chief architect of the empire, a man who spoke with stone and prayed through domes. According to legend, Mimar Sinan saw Mihrimah Sultan only once, but that single moment lasted a lifetime. This was not a love lived in palaces. There were no letters, no response, no possibility. In fact, as the stories tell, Mihrimah Sultan was never aware of Sinan's silent devotion. This love, if it truly existed, was one-sided, silent, buried within art, where love turned into stone. Mimar Sinan never said he loved her, but he built. The mosques constructed in the name of Mihrimah Sultan were not merely places of worship. They were confessions. Mihrimah's name was made of two words: Mir, the sun, Ma, the moon, and Sinan carved that name into stone. Mihrimah Sultan Mosque, Edirne Kapı. It represents the sun, tall, radiant, majestic. At Mihrimah Sultan Mosque, Üsküdar, it represents the moon, softer, calmer, more graceful. According to legend, on March 21st and September 23rd, as the sun sets behind the Edirne Kapı Mosque, the moon rises at the same moment. Between the minarets of the Üsküdar Mosque, the sun and the moon, together in the sky, yet never touching, just like this silent love that was never lived. The woman who never knew. The art that remembered. The most striking truth is this: Mihrimah Sultan was never aware of these feelings. She chose to be remembered for power. Hated walked the path of politics, had long buried love within her heart. But one man saw her and never forgot. That is why some say the love Mihrimah Sultan never lived on in Mimar Sinan's works. Mihrimah Sultan may not have been lucky in love, but she left such a mark that a man was forced to write his devotion into stone, into the sky, and into time itself. Mimar Sinan, also widely known as Sinaneddin Yusuf, is considered the greatest architect of the Ottoman Empire and the master who carried classical Ottoman architecture to its highest peak. According to official records, 476 structures were built or completed under his supervision. The works Sinan created for Mihrimah Sultan are historically known primarily through two grand mosques. Among the most striking structures shaping Istanbul's skyline, Mihrimah Sultan Mosque, Üsküdar, İskele Mosque, Mihrimah Sultan Mosque, Edirne Kapı, Mihrimah Sultan Bath, Mihrimah Sultan Madrasa, Mihrimah Sultan School. The Sultan who spoke to kings. Mihrimah Sultan was no longer a young girl, yet her words still opened doors. Her voice did not echo only within the stone walls of the palace. Mihrimah Sultan, could reach kings at the far edges of the world. One day she took up her pen, pressed her seal, and wrote a letter. That letter was addressed to King Sigismund II Augustus of Poland, a sultan, a woman, the daughter of an empire. Yet in her lines, there was no pleading, no ornamental politeness. Mihrimah Sultan spoke to a king with an equal mind. Peace is not achieved when the powerful remain silent, but when the wise choose to speak. There was no love behind these words, no personal gain, only the cold, steady intelligence of the state. Soon a whisper spread through European courts. There is a woman in the Ottoman Empire, and her words are as powerful as armies. The years when time slowed, but time leaves everyone alone in the end. Mihrimah Sultan lost her mother. She buried her father, Suleiman the Magnificent. There was no longer a passion to stir her heart, nor the impatience of youth. What remained was this, a quiet, unshakable power. When she walked through the palace, women lowered their eyes. When pashas spoke her name, they softened their voices, because Mihrimah Sultan never shouted, but she never forgot. The year was 1578. Mihrimah Sultan quietly departed from this world. No lament rose to the skies, no cry shattered the air. Yet over Istanbul, there was a strange stillness that day. The sun set, the moon rose, just like her name, Mihrimah, a woman unlucky in love, yet unwilling to surrender her fate to anyone. Perhaps she never truly felt loved, but across an entire empire, she was respected. And sometimes, in a fairy tale, the strongest women are not remembered for happy endings, but for the marks they leave behind.